Welcome to the Young Hearts Run Free podcast, Fiona
Hello.
Russell. How are you doing,
Hi.
Fiona?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, should I have said Fiona Outdoors? What is your real name?
So, well, I was christened Fiona Russell. Most people know me as Fiona Outdoors. In fact, I have clients who are not even outdoorsy clients who know me as Fiona Outdoors.
Okay,
So,
so
yeah.
we're gonna roll with Fiona. We're gonna just
Okay.
do that.
Well,
Okay,
actually, I'm usually Fee. So
Fee.
just to throw it in there, yeah, I'm Fee.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Fee. What our listeners would like to know, I'm sure a lot of them, and we're going to speak a lot about Fiona Outdoors tonight. But what we would like to know, and what we'd like our listeners to know, is who is Fee? What is your backstory? Over to you.
Well, I'll probably just stick just to my work career kind of thing because that's where Fiona Outdoors came from. Yeah, sure you don't want my life story. Although I was born in England, but I've been up in Scotland for 40 years, despite this very English accent. I've been up here for a long time. And so as a journalist, I started in newspapers when I was about 18 or 19, traineeship. And I started at DC Thompson's in Dundee and then worked my way up through regional newspapers doing different jobs. Ended up working for the Daily Record in Glasgow, and then I moved to the Herald. And I suppose if you're going to talk about the height of my career, I was assistant editor on the Herald, in charge of a wee team running a lifestyle magazine for the Herald. But that was, gosh, so long ago now, I can hardly remember. 20 years ago was when I left newspapers.
Okay.
Loved and like had a great career, really loved the journalist office, loved all the people, and made some really good friends who I still have to this day. Stayed in Scotland doing journalism, didn't really have a great desire to go to London. Once I moved to Scotland, I pretty much stayed apart from a wee spell at university in Newcastle. And so then I went freelance. It was because years ago, I mean, this is fairly common now, there was redundancies going, and I'd had a lovely editor. We had a new editor, wasn't so keen. So I just thought I'm going, and also I think because I've been a commissioning editor and I'd seen other people's content coming in, and I was doing quite a lot of rewriting, which I enjoyed. And I thought, gosh, maybe I could do that again, go back to doing the sort of writing. And I just thought, and also my daughter at that time, I was a single parent and she was 6 and trying to get to and from the office in time for childcare. And it was back in the day where the editor needed to see the white of your eyes. You didn't do home working. There was no remote working unless my daughter was ill. So I took a chance overnight, just went, yep, I'm having that redundancy. I'll take the package and I will set up on my own, which is pretty nerve wracking because I bought a house in Bearsden. I had a daughter. I did have a partner, but it was a bit like, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to go at this. So set up as a freelancer, and I decided I was going to write about what I wanted to write about if I could, rather than being told by an editor what to write about, which is how I then, you'll move on to asking me how I became known for outdoors, is because I loved outdoors and sport and adventure. It's particularly in Scotland, and I thought that's what I'm going to write about if I can.
Can I ask, where in England? You mentioned you were born in England. Where about in England?
Well, I was born in Yorkshire, but I lived in London, 3 houses in Essex. 3 houses in Essex, 1 house in Hertfordshire. It was in Melbourne near Royston, and then I moved to Peebles when I was 15.
When you were 15? Wow. Okay, you had me at Yorkshire. I was happy with that. That's cool.
I know. Now, if people ask, I would say I come from Peebles because it's where my parents stayed for the longest and where I have, strong connection still to Peebles. I have very little connection to England. I can't really even remember where I lived.
Okay. Yeah. Now, before we get to Fiona Outdoors, what about sort of running background? You exercise. What about that?
Well, so I've always been sporty, possibly contrary to my family, really. I think my dad was quite sporty, but nobody really had a great sporty background. But I was a real tomboy. And football, I loved football as a kid. But it was back in the day where when you got to 11, you couldn't play football for the club anymore because for some reason you weren't allowed to because you might get changed and show a bit of skin or something. It was ridiculous. There was no girls' football that I recall. We didn't really have sports athletics type stuff. We had a bit of stuff from, a little bit of school stuff, but there was no, I can't remember athletics clubs, but then possibly because my parents weren't particularly sporty, I didn't get connected to it. And then like I rode my bike, did a bit of school sports, hockey, that kind of thing. But I got into judo. That was my passion. So I think about age 11, I was really lucky. The village I lived in England, the last place I lived in England, they started a judo club, and my mum suggested I might like it, and my brother went as well. My brother hated it. I loved it. And it was my thing for the next, until I moved to Scotland. And I was kind of adopted by the coach and his wife and the kids. So when we went to competitions, I went with them. And I'm not a very boastful person, actually, but I'm going to slightly boast on one thing because it's the only thing I've really ever been really good at. And I was a national champ. I was a silver medalist at nationals. And so I was really proud of that when I was 15.
And so you should be.
Yeah, but I've never done anything quite so amazing since.
Well, let us say congratulations on that silver medal. Well done. Stephen.
And then, so I just, sorry.
I was going to say, Stephen, do you sense the opportunity to talk about Japan?
Well, judo.
Yes.
Me being a judo aficionado myself. We are liking in this season a Japanese word or phrase, and I sense an opportunity for a judo-related Japanese word. Fee.
Like dojo?
Can you?
Dojo?
Is that the competition?
That's a room, isn't it? I think.
Is it? Well,
yeah.
That's.
Or ogoshi. There's a throw, a hip throw.
Oh, I like an ogoshi.
Tayatoshi, I think was another one. I mean, this is me dragging. You're going to ask me how old I am and how I'm going to have to go that far back. I can't really remember a lot of it.
It's
I think
okay.
your gi was your outfit, your suit.
Oh, see, it never leaves you. It
Right.
never leaves you.
We got 4 for the price of 1 there, John.
We
I'm
did.
happy that we have touched on Japan in this turning Japanese season. Thank you, Fiona, and congratulations on the silver medal in the nationals.
That was when I was 15. Anyway, then I did loads of sports. I've always done loads of sports. I've always loved being busy and fit, and always had a bike, played tennis, ran. Nothing ever massively. I've never been actually that brilliant at any of it. I just quite like them all. Any adventure sport, kayaking. I've got a sea kayak. I love skiing. I used to snowboard. I just love being outdoors.
I'm getting a sense of how you're called Fiona Outdoors. Don't know. I used to be Stephen Indoors. No anymore. Running.
Yeah, I do run.
And you still running. Okay, as do we.
Yeah.
Mostly. But have you had any running experiences that stick in your memory more than others?
Running experiences.
Yeah, races, adventures.
I have dabbled in. I mean, I don't actually do massive races. I think I did my first 10K ever I think it was the first women's 10K, and it would have been must have been around about the year 2000, because I was working on the Herald, and part of the magazine I was running, I'd insisted that we had to have a fitness and outdoors platform when I was launching it, and the editor was fine with that. And so then this women's 10K started, and somebody said, "Oh, you need to write about that. Why don't you write about it as a diary and then do it?" And so I did, and that was probably my first experience doing a 10K, and I enjoyed it. But 10Ks are hard. 10Ks are like really, really hard. So I went on and did a few more of those and got reasonably good times. And then did half marathons. I have never been kind of obsessed with racing at all. I find I get really like quite nervous. Possibly don't perform as well as I could because I don't sleep the night before. I mean, I have done them. I've done triathlon. That was a big thing I did in my 40s. I did a marathon when I turned 40, and then I did an ultra when I turned 50. And I don't tend to repeat them. It's really funny. And I did a marathon. I did the Loch Ness Marathon when I turned 40, and I got an age group for New York and London, and never bothered to go to either.
But you could have if you wanted to. Had
no great desire to go to London or New York to run a marathon.
But that's something in itself, getting an age group qualifier.
I think I then moved on from road because I find road quite boring and sore on my body. So then I got much more into doing hill running and trails and combining like running with hiking, so you get further. But you're not slogging yourself. I'm quite happy to work hard for a session, which I do weekly at my Highland Hill Runners Club. It's a great session, but I'm much more, I quite like just the outing with friends, doing a big distance or a short distance and chatty. I just love a mix.
And when you said that you did an ultramarathon for your 50th, what one was that?
The Ochel Ultra.
Oh.
Ochel's one. I think it was 50k. 50k for my 50th was what I did.
Was that like Ochterarder to Perth or Stirling?
Yeah, I think it was the valley between, I'm trying to remember which one it was. Glendevon, that's it. Yeah, it was that bit of it. It was lovely. And I think the other reason why I tend not to race too much is I get really competitive in the event, which is, a great thing if you're racing, but sometimes I take it a bit far and I make myself really ill. And I think I've got a potential to be run myself to collapse. So I think doing anything too ultra would be a disaster. I remember doing that ultra, and I'm just ludicrous because I was 50 at the time and 51. And I set off with these two girls who were probably, I think they turned out to be in their 20s or maybe early 30s. And I was just running along, chatting to them. It was great, really enjoying myself. But I was, probably blowing up my ass at the time, thinking, oh, God, look at me. I'm keeping up with these young things. And then, of course, they left me at some point. But by then, I'd burst myself. But then I still didn't want anyone to come past me. So I still pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to the point where I could hardly stand up at the end. And I did still do quite well, but I didn't need to be that competitive. It was only a little race. It didn't matter. I get caught up in it. Yeah.
And that. So, step back.
Yeah, so I prefer to do just friendly adventures with friends. Yeah. And I'm not competitive with them. I just like spending time with people.
I can just imagine, when you're 100 meters for the car at the end with your pals, and you go, I'll get that dip in there first. Brilliant. Can I ask you, what Fiona Outdoors, I've mentioned it a few times, and you spoke about leaving the sort of mainstream media, if I can call it that, to go and do your own thing.
Yeah.
And you've now described your love of almost anything outdoors. But how do you turn that passion into a job? How do you turn that passion into your life?
Yeah, I don't know how I did it. It's really amazing. I had a stroke of luck, or maybe genius, actually. I don't know, it was luck. When I left the Herald, I needed a new email address. And I just thought, Fiona Outdoors. Brilliant, that's me. Excellent. So I did Fiona Outdoors. I think it was AOL back then. It's now FionaOutdoors@gmail.com. And I thought nothing more of it apart from that was going to be my email. And I really wanted to write about the things I like doing. So back, it was such a long time ago, 20 years, I started a blog. And it was one of those, really simple kind of diaries, chronological order, and mainly, I guess, about myself, almost a guilty pleasure that I could write about what I wanted to write about. And then that developed because I spot interesting people to interview, and being a journalist, your bread and butter is interviewing interesting people or inspiring people. So I started interviewing people, and some of that I can sell. So I'm always looking to sell an article to a newspaper or a magazine. And back in 2005 to the 5 or 6 years, there was a lot of freelance money in newspapers. There's none anymore. And I had, I used to write for the Herald, Times, Guardian, Telegraph, magazines, Runner's World, Trail Magazine, all these sort of magazines. And people were interested. I think it coincided as well with like an interest in the outdoors and fitness and increase, especially in Scotland. So I had columns. I had a column in the Sunday Mail, I had one in the Sunday Times. It was brilliant, really good, really lucrative. I thought, this is amazing. I've got to do the things I like to do. So some of that was stuff I like to do. So adventures that were a little bit unusual or a bit longer to inspire other people, I guess. And I was involved as well in Visit Scotland's walks guides and adventure guides, that sort of thing. And maybe I didn't know masses about Scotland. And so maybe as I was learning, I was writing about it, and then I became the knowledge on it. So if somebody was looking for a walks guide for a newspaper or an article about the best places to do kayaking or something, they would just come to me. It just became like, Fiona Outdoors. And so I started to get more and more of that sort of story to write about, and less of the other stuff, because I was still writing about other lifestyle bits and pieces and news. Mm-hmm. And today, even to this day, I still write community articles or other newspaper articles if I spot an opportunity, but mainly it became more and more about outdoors and adventure. And then the blog became more of a magazine website, I guess. It sort of grew because it had kit reviews, it had interviews with people, and also my stuff. And then over the time, I've redeveloped my website a couple of times. It's been redesigned. So now it's more like, if people are looking for ideas of things to do, or they put into Google a search for a review of a particular pair of shoes or something, like running shoes or some sort of kit, that will come up and people will find me that way. So I suppose it just became, I don't know, it's weird. I don't know how it's happened. And I don't know, I got lucky. I think, I got very lucky. However, what I would have to say is I'd balance that out now, is that while a niche is a great thing to have, especially in journalism, like you can think of cookery writers or interior writers, what happens is some things go out of favor, or there's less budget for niche things. So there's far less budget now across all of freelance journalism. In fact, some publications have a zero features budget. They just rely on people writing free stuff, which I would not do. And I think, if you think about lots of the magazines, the outdoors magazines in particular, through lockdown, lots of magazines went by the wayside. But it comes and goes. I write for the Scots magazine. They've got a great outdoor platform. They've got loads of, Cameron McNeish writes a column in there, but they've also got other outdoor venture type stuff. Really nice magazine to write for. So I often have a piece in there.
You say that you've been lucky, but it sounds like you've put a lot of hard work in, a lot of graft. Yeah. Yeah,
you have to work. If you're a freelancer and you're on your own, you've got no promotion department, no PR working for you. You've got to be able to, first of all, spot opportunities, be good at thinking of ideas and what ideas will make a good story. So you've then got to sell that story idea. So I would sell an idea to a newspaper or a magazine. I'd never write a piece first. They would say, yeah, that's great, 800 words, 1,000 words, this is what we'll pay you, this is the deadline. And you've also got to be able to, I suppose, put yourself out there. And that's a really hard thing to do, because I think Brits cringe at that sort of thing. We're not particularly good at self-promotion. But social media was really helpful right from the early days. First of all, it gave me a connection to people, because leaving a busy journalist office where a lot of your friends were was really hard. I became a little bit depressed. But social media sort of came into its own there, because I could still connect with people, still chat with people. And then if you're writing about the stuff you're doing, and you're not doing it in a sort of arrogant, showy-offy sort of way, if you're doing it in a real way, and you're also saying some of the things that are difficult, or, you know, when we'll no doubt touch on this, but, you know, through the bloody menopause years, and I know it's a hot topic now, but I never imagined I would find myself writing about how that's impacted me, but people relate to it. And so if you can be quite real in social media, I think you can end up with quite a good following. I mean, I'm not over the top about social media. I do negatives and positives of life, but I think it's been really useful for promoting my business, and also for getting contacts. You know, people now know who I am. If they've run a FKT, they'll contact me and say, or somebody will say, oh, do you know such and such has just run an FKT on the West Highland Way? You could contact them and write about it. So it works both ways. But I have worked hard. I would say I've worked many hours, and I'm quite disciplined in my workplace. I don't watch the telly in the day. Don't even have a telly, actually. And mainly because I had to bring up a child. I had a mortgage to pay, and all her school stuff and things. And she has a dad, a lovely dad, but I couldn't sit back and watch the telly or anything. You know, I needed to earn money. You have to be creative to do that.
You know how when any time there's a travel story comes up, and we always hear from Simon Calder, you know, and right away it's almost like that's who your mind goes to for travel. So today, it actually in my head today, because he was commenting on the Heathrow expansion, which was where point in time and as to when we were recording this. But it's almost like Fiona Russell, Fiona Outdoors, you've become the go-to person in Scotland, you know, to be that, you know, leading journalist on such a range of things, you know, not just running, obviously, you know, and you know, reviewing books and doing your column, and I was going to ask you the question, because the first time that you came onto my radar, Fiona, was when I started ultra marathoning in 2015, John.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of my own diary and timeline, and I'd go to your website to get your list of Scottish ultramarathons.
Oh yeah, that's a really popular one. And I tell you why that was a little moment of genius, because I was looking myself for lists and I couldn't find any, and there used to be a good list, or a reasonably good list. I think it was like the Scottish race list or something or other, and it disappeared, and I couldn't find one. I thought, do you know what? I'm going to put one together. Now it takes time. I get paid nothing for doing that.
I know.
That's what people forget is my website. I don't get paid to write on my website. So I had to put effort into that. But what happens is that having good traffic on your website allows you to have some sponsored posts or advertising, and allows you also to be able to be sent kit. And also, you know, it's like it's like a piece of promotion. My website shows who I am, that I can write, the sort of things I do. So then other people come to me and want me to write for them.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for that. And I know that you can make a sort of donation through your website, buy me a wine, I think yours. Yeah. And but I'm sure I speak on behalf of other people listening as well, as to say that was a source that at the time when I was looking at it, I wasn't thinking Fiona's not getting paid for this. And being dead honest, I'm thinking, this is brilliant, Fiona. Thank you so much. So I want to go back. I want to buy you a wine now to say thank you.
You can buy me a bottle if you want.
Yeah, well, hold me to that. And then, but it's more the fact that then put you on my radar. And then, and it's that, what you've just explained so well, is that has showcased you and your work, and then I then see, oh wait a minute, that's Fiona who does that column in the Sunday paper. That, do you know, and it all starts entwining. And I think, yeah,
I think in the world, I don't know, it's what's called building a brand, isn't it?
yeah,
And
exactly.
I didn't even know that's what I was doing. I mean, so I have a camper van and I've got my name on the back. And some people have said, "Oh, why have you done that?" And one of the reasons is that when I'm traveling around, people see my van and people come and say hello to me, and they're like, "Oh, do you remember you interviewed me on the phone for such and such, or you wrote about this?" And it's really nice to meet people. I mean, it means I can never have an affair because I'm spotted everywhere.
And I'm sure some of the people listening will have seen your van
Yeah.
putting down the A9 or whatever it may be as you know, went on one of your adventures and have clocked exactly who that is.
Yeah,
you know?
people take photographs of it next to their car or their vehicle and say, "Oh, I saw you were out doing such and such."
Do you put other stickers on your van like some people do?
No, my van is too precious for that.
Thank you for saying that, Stephen, because if I saw it in a lay-by, I would put a Young Hearts Run Free sticker on it. I won't do that.
Like
no, God, no, I'll be really annoyed. I love my
really
van.
Annoyed.
I love my van like my child.
Yeah. And what I would say, I've actually got the website open here, and there's a up-to-date list of ultramarathons for 2025.
There is
on Fee's website.
And I've also added a new one, which is trail runs over half marathon length. So it's between half marathon and ultra. And if you're going to define the ultra as sort of, I don't know, 30 miles or something.
Yeah, and that's brilliant because there's people, listeners to the podcast, who are on their running journey and they've come from maybe doing couch to 5K, a 10K, then they hear about trail running, do a wee bit of that. So it's perfect for people to go and find out a wee bit more information about what's out there. Because literally still, people, there's no sort of definitive list. Well, you've got a definitive list, but there's not many other places that have that much detail. So it's brilliant that that's here on the website.
Yeah, I think there's not many places that have got like the Scottish element. So there's plenty of places that have got a mixture, but they don't cover it all. I mean, people still get in touch with me and say, "Oh, you've missed this one or you've missed that one." And I try to update it as quickly as I can. And some of them, they don't have the dates on, so I have to update those as I go along.
Yeah,
but it's just having a resource, isn't it?
People realise you're doing that as a service, free of charge for the community. And I think, but I didn't realise that there was the ultramarathon list and then this newer one with the trail races. You have to get the UK's premier trail race on there, even though it doesn't fit the criteria being over half a marathon. But it's the Chile trail race in Auchterarder, which is my wife and I's event.
Send me the details. Buy a glass of wine. You might get one on there.
We'll send you an entry. You're more than welcome to come and join in the fun. It's the first weekend in November.
Yeah. Come and do it.
I'll get horribly caught up in competitiveness.
Yeah, you could win it. You could win it.
It is. And you'll love it because it's shaped like a chili pepper, the root. And that's how it's the chili. And while
you're running it, I'll stick a sticker on your van. So there we are.
Did he say that, Sean?
I'm only joking. I've got Fiona. I've got some magnets, and the magnets come off. So there you go. Yeah, you can put that in your van.
He's got everything, Fiona. But no, thanks from me, John, and everybody else who uses that resource because it's precious and has been for a lot of years.
We're speaking about running, but Fiona Outdoors is much more than running. What are some of your personal favourite outdoor activities, Fiona?
So definitely mountain walking or hiking. So my passion for mountains is relatively new, actually. While I've always been sporty, probably more traditionally sporty, like running and road running and that kind of thing, I didn't get into doing Munro bagging and Corbett bagging and that kind of thing until about 15 years ago. So the story of that is that I had a previous husband who was outdoorsy. My current husband is also outdoorsy, but his love was of things like the Anakiga and the ridges, and so we did some hills together and stuff. But we did the Anakiga, and I hated it. The one thing I do not like is drops, heights and drops, vertical drops. I just have never been able to deal with it. I can remember as a child not liking cliffs or anything. I think I've probably improved a bit in the last 15 years, but back then I didn't. And for some reason, known only to myself, we did it 3 times, 3 years in a row. I hated every single one of them. And I thought, well, if this is Munros, that's not for me. This is not my thing. So I carried on. And I did actually spend about 10 years doing triathlon with Glasgow Triathlon Club. So I had other interests. Anyway, so I was walking. I joined a charity walk for Scottish Water Aid, I think it was, about 15 years ago, and it was the 5 Sisters of Kintail. And I loved it. It was a completely different thing. It was a lot of ascent. It was quite a big distance. It was the Munros. It was 3 Munros, even though it's called the 5 Sisters, there's 3 Munros. And I actually met my current husband while doing it. He was part of a group of people doing this walk. And I just thought, oh, this is amazing. This is totally what I love. This is big distances, this is wild places, this is amazing views, this is chatting to great people. And then I was chatting to my husband, Gordy, and he was really in pursuit of the Munros. So there was, and I knew about Munro baggers, but I thought, gosh, they're a bunch of bonkers people. Why would you want to do that? But that's because my idea of the Munros was quite different from what most of them actually are. And so I got chatting to him, and he was saying he was doing Munros every weekend. He was completely obsessed with them. I think when I met him, he probably had done more than half of the 282, or there was 284 back then. And so I then got into doing them with him, and I followed him up, I don't know, another 70 or 80 Munros. But I was sort of following him. I was never thinking, I'm going to do this for myself. I was quite daunted by the navigational aspect. My previous partner had said that I wasn't really very good at navigation, and I couldn't deny that I probably wasn't. But I hadn't really thought about learning it. I just thought, I always get lost when I'm driving a car. I'll be rubbish at navigation. As it turns out, I can now navigate myself up mountains. Of course I can, because you know, we can all learn to read a map. So I got into I did a whole load with my husband, and he finished his first round probably a couple of years after we met. And then I continued doing them, but I was doing them with other people as well. And I remember at one point saying, I wonder how many I've done. I hadn't kept track of them. So I said to my husband, I wasn't married then, I said, but you know, if we ever split up, I'm not going to know which ones we've done, because I can't remember the names of them, because I was so new to them. Anyway, we totted them up, and I realized I'd done more than half. Oh. And I thought, oh, I'm going to have to do them all now. But the problem was that there's all these really steep ones, the horrible ones like the Coolin Ridge, the Falcon Ridge, the Attack, all these things. And I'm probably saying them wrong. So anybody who's really properly is good at speaking Scottish, I'm sorry if I'm saying more wrong. But there was a lot of ridges, and I thought, well, do you know what? I'll keep going. Love it. Made lots of new friends through them. And then I was getting down to sort of like the last 50, the last 30. I'd done 3 of the Coolin ones, you know, the Impin. Hated it. Cried, hysterical. He thought I was going. At one point I said, my husband, unfortunately he's a climber, so he had ropes and things. I said, oh God, I'm going to have to get a helicopter. I can't do this. I can't. Anyway, awful. And so I was down to, I think, about 25 or so to go a few years ago. And I had like another, so I think it's 11 on the Coolin, and I'd done 3, so I had the rest of them to do. And I did them. It's the proudest thing I've probably ever done in the mountains. And I was so proud of myself. I really hated it. There's pictures on my website of I'm just in horror. It was emotional, so emotionally draining. I'm physically totally capable, but emotionally. And when we were doing some of them, we had a friend with us, a guy called David, and his summing up of it was the best day of his life. When we did a half traverse, we did 6 of them once. And for me, it was the worst day of my life. I hated it. But anyway, I did them. And so...
What drove you to do them, though?
Because I wanted to get them finished. I was so determined.
Is that competitive edge?
Possibly, yeah. And I just thought, it's ridiculous. I've only got 20 odd left. So once I'd done those, I had a big round of the Fisherfield to do. That was a big day out, and some others, big remote ones. But by then we were I'd moved up to the Highlands, so they were much easier to do than from Glasgow, where I was before. And then I started on the Corbetts, and I'm now obsessed with them.
Okay.
So I love the hills. I mean, I'll do if it's bad weather, I'll go and do a small hill like the Grahams, or I like to call them Fionas. There's a story to that, but I like to call them Fionas. And I do Munro tops now, so there's summits that aren't classed as Munros, but they're the height of a Munro. So if my friends are going out to do Munros, I'm always like, oh, is there a Munro top? We must do a Munro top. So I love lists. I'm totally obsessed with doing lists. But I will equally go out and do ones I've done before, just in different weather. Or like the South Glenshiel Ridge, for example, I walked it the first time, and then subsequently I've run it just for something different to do. And the Five Sisters of Kintail, you can tag on the brothers. So I did them separately as walks in my first round. Then I've also run them all as a one long run hike. So, and I enjoy sea kayaking, ski touring, wild swimming, cycling. I used to be a very keen cyclist. I'm now prefer sort of gravel cycling. I use mountain bike to get to Munros sometimes. Anything.
What's the point of you having a house?
Oh, well, yeah. This house has become a bit of a huge renovation project, which I really didn't want, envisage, or desire, because it's kept me a little bit trapped. Yeah.
You heard me when you said the Grahams, but I call them the Fionas. I have to ask the question, why do you call them that?
Well, there's a bit of a... yeah. Okay, so the story is, very briefly, the Grahams were named after Fiona Talbot, whose maiden name was Grahams, and she and a chap called Alan Dawson, years and years ago, were walking hills of a height of 2,000 feet to 2,500 feet, and feet is quite important to think about just now. So Munros are 3,000 feet and over, Corbetts are 2,500 to 3,000 feet, and the Grahams, they named them the Grahams, are 2,000 feet to 2,500 feet. And actually, Fiona was murdered. Really sad story. She's a really keen walker. She was staying at a B&B in the Highlands, and the son of the owners of the B&B took her life, which the story is well publicized. Anyway, at that point, Alan Dawson takes over, sort of looking after them, making sure all the I guess you're caring for them in a way, keeping a hold of a list, caring for a list. And then a few years ago, maybe only 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I don't know, he decided that rather than the Grahams being 2,500 feet to 2,500 feet, that he would change them to meters. So it'd be like saying that the Munros, which are 3,000 feet, are actually translate to 914.4 meters. So the Grahams translated to something around 712 meters. But he decided that anything over 700 meters was going to become a Graham. So he's made them metric. So it'd be like saying that all Munros are now going to be over 900 meters, which would probably be a bit of an outcry if that happened. Anyway, he decided he's the owner of the list, and he was going to change them. So now the new Grahams are anything over, or is it 600 meters? I've got that wrong. Anyway, whatever the meters were. And Walk Highlands, that great website, decided that they weren't so happy about that. They'd rather keep the old Grahams in the feet, because that's what they've been for so long. So they named them Fionas after Fiona Talbot née Graham. So they became the Fionas. And whatever I think, I don't really care. I just love that they're called Fionas, because that's me. So yeah, I mean, it's a name, isn't it? It doesn't matter. It's only a name. Some people get really annoyed if you call them the Fionas.
Fee, you're saying it doesn't matter, but I can smell contention in there when you start talking about feet and meters. I'm really glad I asked. I wasn't aware of that, so thank you.
That's the kind of loose version of the story. I mean, I might have got some bits and pieces wrong, but there are some people who've set up mountains of 1,000 meters tall or more, so metric, on the mainland, and they're called arches. And there's so many different hill lists. You could be bagging hills forever, for 14, 15 lifetimes. Of course you could.
And don't.
But it's the change out. I don't know what I feel about it. I guess in the end, I'll probably do all the Grahams and the Fionas as a subset. I don't know. But Fiona bagging totally appeals to me.
Definitely.
But it's that collective nature of people, like that obsessive collector of.
Yeah, it's just nice to have a goal, isn't it? It's like having a race. It's just
exactly.
The Munros and the Corbetts have taken me to places I never would have gone to, and so many amazing places down the ends of these tiny single track roads down elongated glens, and it's just incredible places with incredible views. And I would never have done that. I would never have explored Scotland as I've explored it. I would never have learnt as much. And it's just going to new places. I love seeing new places.
Can I ask what was your final Munro?
Benelap, Corral. It's one of the most popular. So, the really remote one you have to get to by train. And I had a weekend of, took over the whole hostel, and it was actually like having a wedding. People arriving for your day, and it was so emotional. I didn't think I was going to be emotional at all. I was very emotional. Lovely bunch of people came up my last Munro, and I don't really remember coming down because I was too drunk on champagne. It was really lovely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Brilliant. You mentioned about, the whole conversation's been peppered with different women and names that you've mentioned, Fiona predominantly. But I want to speak about challenges for women. You also mentioned about the menopause, and it's a subject that we don't shy away from any subject. We're happy to speak about anything, because I think what we need, certainly around things like the menopause, is to open up the conversation around that. So, women, you also mentioned navigation, that you were told that you maybe wouldn't be good at navigation, but it actually turns out that you really are very good at navigation. Everybody can learn to do that. And we hear about, there's a group called Girls on Hills who take people and promote and help and encourage people, women, to do navigation and to go out in groups. Do you want to say a wee bit about women in the outdoors, Fiona? Let me leave that as that category, and you can talk about it any way you wish.
Yeah, it's such a big topic, and it's something I'm asked a lot. And so for much of my life, I think I've never really thought of being a specific gender. I've just always thought I'm a person. And challenges are to be overcome as a person. It's quite a weird thing. I don't know whether that comes from being quite a rough and tumble tomboy. I don't know. But there is quite a lot of stereotyping. So, women are told they're navigationally challenged. And possibly we do, if you're speaking in a generalized way, maybe we do navigate in a different way. And certainly I've found that when I'm out with women, we discuss our navigation more. Although that's not to say that I don't do that with some of my male friends. Maybe there's just more kind of alpha male types who want to be leaders. So I don't think navigation should be talked about in the gender way. I think we all learn in different ways. Some of us will talk about when we're doing directions, for example, we might say, you turn left at the red post box and then right at the yellow bin. And maybe more men will talk about road signs and direction. I don't know. That's what I've found. But I think we all just learn in a different way. And we just have to work out how we're going to learn to read maps. And I think that Girls on Hills are great because women find working and discussing things with women probably a bit easier. But that's not to say there aren't men who are great at discussing navigation. And I have learned the most from my husband in navigation, and also two really good male friends of mine that I walk with a lot. And none of us are sort of leaders in our navigation. We just discuss everything. And it's just a process of how to learn. Other challenges for women, there's the stranger danger thing, which is an obvious thing because many women, I guess, are physically weaker than men, and there's a perceived danger. But I think it's the same for men. The dangers, the only time I've ever felt really threatened if I was running was in urban environments, running in the dark in urban environments, I guess, and I've once been chased. But then I guess men probably have been, and we're not all physically bigger, and even if you are a physically bigger person, you're still going to be scared if you get shouted at or run or chased. I think like I do night run on my own, and I think nothing of it, but I'm in a very quiet place. I hardly see anybody else. I don't perceive myself to be in particular danger. I walk on my own in the mountains. I mean, the same danger for men and women involved in that is that if you trip and fall, you're on your own. And many, I've got lots of male friends who've had that happen to them, and they're just as vulnerable as women. Do I feel more vulnerable as a woman walking in because of stranger danger? No, I don't, because I find the mountains environment incredibly friendly. I've never felt threatened. So I've not ever perceived that as a gender thing, I guess. Some of the challenges are more physical, so periods and menopause will be classics. Men don't have to deal with that. They're lucky. And you have to deal with losing your hair and getting hair where you don't want it. That's probably not going to affect your sport, is it? Whereas for women, periods and menopause definitely affect physical endeavor. And I don't think we knew much about it. Certainly when I was growing up, or through most of my life, I didn't realize that my menstrual cycle was affecting my ability to run, and how tired I would be. I think we talk more about it. I think there's been much more research on it, so that's been helpful. Menopause, I had no idea what that was going to be. I assumed, because I was fit and healthy, that I would just float through it, and wouldn't it be great that my period's finished and that I'd have none of that hassle anymore. I did not realize all the symptoms that would go with it. And I didn't imagine for a second that I would become somebody who would write and talk about it. I've been on the radio and I've presented at sports events talking about the challenges and symptoms and how we can cope with it. So I think there's that gender difference there. But in general, I don't really ever think of myself in overtly female way. I've got many friends who are male and female. I never think of them as male and female. I think they're just people. They're just my friends. So yeah, that's my answer.
Cool. I love it. I love that. I love that. See people as a person. See, and that it's not about gender, because then I'm not wanting to go down the equalities route, because that's another podcast episode, But we seek equality, and it sounds like your mindset is that.
I think we're having been brought up in the 70s. Boys, blue was for boys, and pink was for girls. And even when my daughter was younger, my daughter's now 26. Everything was pink and fluffy. And actually, interestingly, she's overtly feminine. She's lovely. She loves pink as a child, and sparkles and dollies and all the things I never was interested in. And she's still very, what I would say, on the very female end of female. She's, just completely different from me. Whereas I'm still probably quite tomboyish. So I don't like that we say that people are more male or people are more female. Even there, I've just said that my daughter's more feminine. Why did I say that? She's just, a particular person. Why are we saying these things? Why are we saying that? We say that, that is a classic one, isn't there, about women in the workplace? And they'll say women are really intimidating. Well, men behave exactly the same. We wouldn't say they're intimidating. It's just, we're...
Fiona, we're going somewhere we didn't want to go with that.
I know.
Right. Can I ask you, the question that's in my head, is, Does your daughter share the love for the outdoors the same as you?
No, not at all. She loves horse riding, which is the
Okay.
one outdoor activity I cannot stand. And she has been, maybe she's had too many sports thrown at her. Like every holiday was skiing, tennis, sailing. You know, I don't like to sit at a pool. I get so bored. She was lucky because she got to get, her dad is much less sporty and he's been very much part of her life. Like we split when she was 2, and she would go on lovely chilled swimming pool holidays with him, and then she'd be dragged on a yet another sporting holiday. She went to every sports club, you know, and she's, you know, capable. She's got a great, she'd be great as a runner if she could be bothered, but she just doesn't really like being out of her comfort zone.
Just not her thing. Yeah,
No,
that's cool.
I keep saying to her, it's quite funny because I'll say to her, darling, I'm pretty sure you're going to one day ask me for a half marathon training plan, and you'll just come to me and just say, Mum, I'm doing a half marathon. And she said, don't be so bloody stupid. I'll never do that.
Never say never.
I know. But she knows, I mean, she does know how to do the sports, and she knows that, like, she you know, she sees me always in sports kit. So it's not, if she wants to pick it up, it's never going to be a difficult thing for her to do. It'd be perfectly normal for her to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does she like a wee trip in the camper van?
Yeah, when she was a kid. She
Right.
prefers a nice hotel.
I could image. Okay. Can I ask a question? And it's actually related to a section on your website about kit, Fiona. And you did mention one of the byproducts was that you get sent some kit and things like that. And it's okay to give an honest answer here, but we're looking for some Fiona Outdoor kit recommendations for somebody new to outdoor adventures. What's your faves? Plural.
Well, it has to be the Skort.
Oh,
Hmm.
I love a
So
Skort.
I love the Skort. Obviously, I mean, and men can wear them. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
There are men who wear them. People ask me why I wear them, and I'm such a huge fan of them. One of the reasons is I've never been particularly body confident in the bum and thigh area, and I know a lot of women like that. And I think they're put off sport. We wear tight, like, you know, it's tight lycra shorts, tight lycra tights, or little shorts or whatever. And that's fine when you're young and confident, but, you know, we all age and we get lumps and bumps that we don't particularly want. And the Skort to me is just genius because it covers the bits you're not so keen on. And then also, if we're allowed to touch on this, you know, periods and incontinence issues. As women get older, a bit of incontinence problems, especially through menopause, you can have a little tiny, if I'm allowed to say, leak and nobody notices. Excellent. And they're just bright and fun. The ones I've got, the fancy ones, you can get a discount voucher or discount code on my website. I don't earn any money from them, but there's a code on my website and you can get 10% off. And I just think that company's fantastic. There's so many brilliant designs and make me feel so happy every time I see them. I've got, I don't know, at least 30 of them.
Wow.
They are quite eye-catching designs, aren't they?
Can I ask, are there pockets in a Skort?
Yeah, so there's 2 side pockets on the legs in the shorts underneath the skirt, and that you can fit a phone that's big enough for a phone on either side, and then there's a little zipped pocket at the back.
So you put a key or something in there, so you've got a pocket for your phone, gels, gloves, whatever.
So I tend not to use that when I'm running because they fall down a bit on me. There are, you've got drawstrings, but I don't like a tight drawstring around my waist, just don't like it at all. But if I'm walking, I find the pockets really helpful. If I'm running, I always have a little pack on. Other stuff I would say for beginners, you don't need very much. You just need it depends. If you're getting into running, you know, you can go to Decathlon and pick up stuff quite easily. Or the stuff you use for yoga, as long as it's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the thing I would spend money on is footwear. But this is the question that people ask me all the time. what's your recommendation for footwear? And it's so dependent on fit. Go and try them on, because what I love won't fit you. I've got a really long, narrow foot. I struggle a lot to find a shoe that fits, especially for women. And then, it depends on where you're running. Are you running on roads? You're running on trails? You're running on hills, mountains? I don't even want to admit how many trainers I've got.
What's your favourite? What's your current favourite trail shoe?
So my current favourite, and it's a real shame because they've changed the model as they normally do, is the Dynafit Ultra 100s. And I got 2 pairs of the first incarnation of them, and they're quite supportive. I rolled my ankle last couple of years ago, and I need something a bit more supportive than I don't find Innovates are supportive enough, although they've got a good grip. So I went for the Dynafits, and then they went to the next model, and they've just added too much cushioning, and they're too sort of spongy for me. So I'm about to try, if I can, the Ultra 50s in the hope that they might be a bit more solid. And then I really do like, I like some of the Innovates for off-road, because I can get away with less sort of support, or sort of, I don't know, sport's probably the wrong word. I can cope with more flexibility in a shoe if I'm off-road on hills, but if I'm on solid track, I like something pretty sturdy. What else do I like? Sauconys, they've got Edge. I think it's a Saucony Edge that's got the carbon plate in them.
Okay. Socks.
I'm wearing, is it Bridgedale maybe I've got on? Don't like anything too thick, but I do like a little bit of cushioning because it just makes me feel nice. Don't like a sock too thin.
Yeah, and again, that it's a case of you've got to try them, haven't you? Yeah. What about toe sock or closed sock?
Oh no, that gives me the creeps. Toe socks.
John gives me the creeps.
Yeah, just in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in a very fortunate position because I can contact companies and try stuff and write about them, and I always do. I'm one thing I do is I'm honest when I write about them. I do the negatives and positives, and the companies know that. They don't want people to be writing all just good things. They want things pointed out, unless obviously there are only just good things.
Can I ask one more question about kit? What running jacket, what waterproof jacket does Fee have?
So I'm wearing out, unfortunately. I hope Montaigne are listening. The Montaigne Spine. I love that jacket. But I do have a new the Kamlika.
Well pronounced.
I wore that one out last time. That one does wear out quite easily, the fabric. The sort of inside of the fabric seems to wear out. Whereas the Montaigne Spine, I've just sort of wrecked it by being in the mountains and tearing it. So I like that.
Well used. I can imagine that jacket. It's a highly thought of jacket, isn't it? That particular one. See, just on Flancy, and we spoke about skirts, they also do men's shorts, the dual layer shorts as well, which are pretty much in John Cassidy designs, right?
Were they?
Yes, I think John
bright.
Yes, very bright undershort.
So the company is fantastic. In fact, I got to design a Highland Hill Runner. That's my club. Skort, and it's really nice. Sort of dark blue with tartan at the sides and little tartan shorts. So it's like a club skort.
Yeah.
And you can suggest designs to them, and they'll either take them on and do them as a big long run and sell them, as part of their collection, or they'll do a sort of shorter run for you.
I think they'd be maybe get in touch and we could do a wee Young Hearts run free.
Bespoke
really nice.
shorts. Oh my goodness.
Keep speaking about for 10 minutes. We'll maybe get there.
And the other thing I do as well, so I like they've got fleece lined tights in lots of jazzy colours as well. And they've got the nice side pockets as well. And they're fantastic for winter running. And I use skirts and tights for hiking as well.
Okay.
So I wear pretty much the same stuff. I just add a few layers in the winter.
I think John's checking them out just now, Fee.
I am. I wish I hadn't opened the website up. It's going to
Good
cost me a
pair.
fortune. I need no more running gear right now.
Oh no,
I
but
need.
they're really reasonable as well. I'm like, it sound like
I
I'm
know.
like a promoter for them, but their prices are great.
And they've got a sale on. My
Yeah.
God.
It's like, in our next question, you got any side hustles, Fiona? Well, I actually run this website that sells scores.
I wish.
I know. No, thank you for that. And I'm sure we'll tag Flancy in. Let's see what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What have you got? What's coming up for
Mm.
Fee in 2025? What projects or adventures have
Oh,
you got and are
yeah.
excited about?
Well, I don't know if I'm excited. Well, I am excited about something. So I'm continuing with my Corbett quest. So I'm about 2/3 through that, and mostly since I moved up to the Highlands about 4 years ago, and I've been doing most of them then. So I'll be doing more of those. I'll be doing more of the Fiona / Grems. I will be continuing my pursuit of Munro tops, and I have actually entered a race, and I can't even believe I'm telling anybody this because I'm usually quite quiet about things. I don't know why I've done it. Anyway, it was based on the idea. Well, a friend of mine won this race a few years ago, and she'd said it was a great thing to do, and it's in the Monte Rosa Mountains. And I was chatting with a couple of local friends, and I said, oh, we could do it as a holiday. It'd be really nice to sort of run hike it. And then we realized we'd have to take all our own kit if we wanted to stay in hotels. And so then a friend said, oh, well, why don't we just enter the race? And I found myself or heard myself saying, yes, what a great idea. And then you had to kind of qualify to get in. So I got quite excited about qualifying and managed to pull it off because I'd done a couple of races like the 2 breweries and a few other things. Anyway, got in. And then I looked at the details, and it's 4 days, and it's, I don't know, somewhere between 35 and 45k, but each day, but there is like 3.5 to 4,500 meters of ascent. That's the bit that's pretty daunting. So it's the sort of height and length, and it's 4 days. Bonus is you stay in hotels. That's what sold it to me, because I could not be bothered with the whole, I mean, I love wild camping, but not when I'm in the middle of running and I'm knackered. You know, I like wild camping when I'm on a lovely hike somewhere. Anyway, so I found myself entered for that and a bit daunted, I have to say. So I will be focusing quite a bit on that and making sure that I, as well as all the stuff I do, so I do loads of ascent and distance, but I need to focus on ensuring I don't get injured and probably a bit more speed work and hills, and continuing. I do a couple of decent weight sessions a week now as well. So kind of pulling all that together and making sure I I just want to comfortably get through it. I don't want to feel like I'm injured or struggling.
That is the name of this, the Ultra Tour Monte Rosa.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Lizzie Hawker's race, is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant book. Just simply called Runner, I think, Lizzie Hawker's book.
Yeah.
Stephen, that's the one Andy Berry went to last year, but I'm sure it got changed, didn't it? There was some weather came in. Something happened with weather, and the course got changed, I think. It's in September, I think they do it.
Well, so actually in September last year, I was in the Dolomites, and the week before I went, they had a massive dump of snow. And actually, the other time I've been in the Dolomites, because that time I was hiking, but the time before I was cycling about 8 years ago, and we had a massive dump of snow in the middle of that, and that was in September. I ended up hypothermic, actually. But they do have snow in September in the Dolomites.
Okay.
So actually that was a Dolomite. So what am I talking about? It's in Monte Rosa. But similar. There was a similar amount. Why I've said that was that there was snow that came across quite a lot of the mountains at that time in September. Yep.
Okay. Well, hopefully you get blue skies this year.
I know it looks an awesome adventure.
Yeah, I've skied there, so I know it's beautiful. I just wanted to have an adventure. So we are actually going for a bit longer. We're going for 7 or 8 days. 5 of us are going.
Brilliant.
So it'll be, it's a friend's trip as well as a scary thing to do.
Maybe end of September you can come back and talk about it.
I could do. If
Yeah.
it's been a good experience.
Yeah. Careful with that.
Awesome.
Careful with that competitive edge at the start, Fee.
But also careful with your body holding up, because I get injured now and a recovery is so slow. And I've noticed, the last 10 years I've just got slower and slower. I've accepted it. I'm accepting of it. But you have to work harder at maintaining things.
But if you're going slower, and you're going to the Ultra Tour Monte Rosa, you've got more time to look up and enjoy the views.
Yes, that's good. Yeah, I want to see the views, definitely. Yeah.
Exactly. So we wish
Silver
you all
linings.
Yeah, exactly that. Stephen,
Yes.
open up the book.
We're into our last two questions.
Oh, the last two questions, yeah.
The first one of which usually belongs to me, and it's for a submission into our dialect dictionary. Word, phrase, possibly something you've picked up along the way. Over to you.
I don't know if I've picked this up or I've made it up. So, and also, it's a bit of a sweary word, but I think it's quite a good word.
Okay, well, we've been swear-free up until now, so unleash.
Well, I'm going to give you two words, but the first one is contouring, which pretty much describes the act of contouring on a horrible slope. We call it contouring.
Brilliant.
And quite
new to me. It's new to me. I love it.
I think I made it up when I was doing a race with somebody and I wasn't enjoying it. It was a mountain marathon with my ex-husband, actually. And he decided that we should, as I named it, contour instead of going over the top. And I just was like so done with the contouring. So that's what I've called it. And the other one is when you've got all that really, really high bracken, in the summer. Well, we call it fucking. So actually, sometimes you can be contouring through the fucking.
Or you can be saying this fucking contouring. You can say that as well. Yeah. So brilliant. I love that. I love him playing words.
I'm glad that we didn't have a sweary all's your episode and we left them for those two. Let's get cunt and fuck it all over the place. So thank you.
And you know what? So when I moved up here, so I'm a journalist. We swear. We're terrible with the vocabulary, and there's a lot of swearing. Journalist office are very sweary. And my daughter's first words were "uck off" or "uck" or something. No, "uck." It was "uck" because she thought instead of. And I said, "Oh, darling, did you say yuck?" And I don't think she did. Anyway, so when I moved up here, I thought I don't want to kind of try and make new friends. I had to make new friends, and went along to hill running clubs and rowing clubs and things to make friends. And I thought, I'm just going to be polite Fee, going to be sweary Fee. So I sort of introduced myself, and I was really, really good about my swearing. And then I don't know. Obviously, I've made good friends. And in the last 2 years, I was just swear as I normally do, and I don't even know I'm doing it. And so you're really lucky I haven't. And I went out with the Inverness Back Country Club the other day skiing, and I was chatting away to a guy he hadn't seen for ages, and he said, "How's things going?" And I must have been effing the whole way through it. And this guy in the car next to me said, "Oh, well, that's great, isn't it? I won't need to watch my swearing at all today." And I said, What do you mean? He said, "Well, you just said fuck in every sentence."
Brilliant. I love it, man. It's just part of your vocabulary, and that's it.
It's bad, isn't it? It's not good.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. You're amongst friends here. It's fine here. Our final question, Fee, is a musical one. What song or track would Fiona like to add in for the Young Hearts Run Free listeners?
Yeah. I love music, but I am don't ever choose particular music. But what I'm going to suggest is, and it might already be in there, is the Proclaimers' 500 Miles. And I don't think it's called 500 Miles, it's called something else. Can't remember what it's called. And there's 2 or 3 reasons for that. One, my mum loved the Proclaimers, and my mum very sadly died 2 years ago. And so whenever I hear the Proclaimers, it just fills me with memories of her. And the other reason is that there's a woman walking the coast of Britain just now, Tracy Howe, and it's called Tracy's Trek. And I know her through my daughter's school. Her son was in the same year as my daughter at a school in Bearsden, and very sadly, she lost her wife in September 23 and to cancer, and she was only 58, and in awful grieving. She'd been with her for almost 40 years, and she decided she wanted to do something positive, and she's walking the coast of mainland Britain at the moment. I think she's done 1,000 miles. I'm helping her to do a bit of promotion. And she's raising money for 5 charities, including cancer charities. And the reason I mention it is because she's managed to get the Proclaimers to agree, because she's walking 5,000 miles, they have changed the lyrics for her that I will walk 5,000 miles.
Wow.
And I just think that's whenever I think of Proclaimers, I think of my mum and I think of this woman and what she's doing. You should follow her out.
We will.
Tracy's Trek. You should get her on, actually, because she's a really good talker. She's currently on the Gower Peninsula. She's been going since November the 1st, and she's walking it all.
Brilliant.
She's 61.
Listen, this is the invite. Hook us up, Fee.
Let's get it. On my website. I can get you tagged in with her.
Let's do that.
Really good, yeah.
2 fantastic reasons to choose an absolutely brilliant song.
And I love the song, and it's great, isn't it? You put it on, and it's in your headphones. It's great.
3 reasons. It's on Stephen's karaoke playlist as well. That's one of the ones Stephen will go to.
That is my go-to karaoke song.
Yeah,
that's another Japan thing, because I'm going to do that in Japan on karaoke for Tracy.
Brilliant. There you go.
There's going to be footage.
Woman, we actually managed also to get. So this woman who's walking the coast is really keen on Strictly Come Dancing things. It's not my thing at all, but she was doing something at Blackpool to do with Fit Steps, which is to do with Strictly Come Dancing, isn't it? Because 2 of the people set it up. Anyway, she said to me, because I was doing a bit of PR, she said, "Do you think we could get Angela Rippon to share my post?" And I was like, there's no way I'll ever be able to get in touch with Angela Rippon. You know, as a journalist, you have access to celebrities, but very rarely can you contact an agent and get Angela Rippon, right? Anyway, thought I'd just try. Sent an email to the Angela Rippon's agent about the story about Tracy and what she was doing. And part of the walk, she was doing this dance at Blackpool. And maybe Angela would do a little shout out for her. I got an email from Angela Rippon. I then got a phone call, and she did a little video talking to Tracy from her Strictly Come Dancing thing and promoted it. I just thought, fantastic.
As we say about here, Fee, there's no milk for shy bairns. Ask the question. To give the song its correct and proper title, it's I'm Gonna Be, and then in brackets, I'm going to say 5,000 miles. Yeah. But people know what that is. It's a brilliant tune. It's one, I love it as well because the Proclaimers have never compromised their accent or their dialect.
Yeah.
So it's in a very fitting tune for what Tracy's doing. And if it reminds you of your mum, brilliant. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Awesome. What a brilliant chat. This has been really good. I've found out, as Stephen said, you came on our radar a good long while ago when we were talking about, we were getting into sort of ultra marathons and talking about that. And it was a resource that we tapped into then. But it's been fascinating to hear your backstory. And forgive me, but I sort of love that your daughter doesn't like going outdoors. I love the fact that she's like things pink and hotels and fluffy. And I think that's brilliant. That's life.
Because she is who she is.
Yeah, exactly that. We're all unique and we can be ourselves. And I love that too. We've covered a lot of stuff. I'll definitely need to listen back to this because we have covered a lot of material. But I want to thank you very much for your time. Stephen, do you want to say?
Exactly that. Thanks so much for your time, Fiona. And it's been brilliant to meet you. Get to thank you for a personal thing that you changed for me. Yeah, seriously. And I take quite a lot of notes. You maybe see me scribbling away, take notes and things like that. Most of them are like things that I need to go and look into further that Fiona has inspired me to do so during that last hour or so. So I'm now.
But, you know, the other thing is that there's so many people that I've interviewed that I've put, and it's been great to interview seemingly ordinary people doing extraordinary things and putting those on the website, and they inspire people. So it's not the stuff I do really, that's by the by. It's the other people, and they give their time for free to speak to me. You know, and that's really valuable content, and they're great stories. Every one of them's got a great backstory and inspiring and highs and lows. They're amazing. So I'm really lucky to be able to have those contacts.
A reminder for our listeners, mosey on over to Fiona Outdoors website, click that, buy me a wine, because I think Fiona deserves a few glasses of wine. Do you not agree, John?
100%, yeah. So
I'm going
to be spending money on wine for Fiona and fancy shorts. That's what's going to happen right after this. That's what's going to happen for me.
Thank you, Fiona, so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was great. Thank you. Enjoyed
no problem.